entering rooms that are not so obviously like enterable, right? Like you have to do some things, not hack a door, but find means around the space and then get more like higher rewards in there.
Gotcha.
So yes, that's like no NPCs and anything is planned in there.
Manuel, can you give me a big like heroic pose, something like this, real quick? There you go. Everybody, screenshot that and with the words "I don't know about peace" underneath that. I'd like to see that on Reddit before the end of the show, please. Are there plans, or does the tool set allow for the creation of non-derelict asteroid bases, whether functional or productive? Like, could they be seen in a system like Stanton, but is abandoned, or inhabited? The mooring. Oh, gee, they're going way into the lore there. The mooring like Nyx. So basically, can we make asteroid bases that aren't just run down, beat up, abandoned places? Is what they're asking.
I mean, yes, the whole concept of asteroid bases is quite expandable and it has lots of potential because it's a very small scale and doesn't need that much development time like a big flagship location. It's not for the initial release right now, so we are focusing more on the free archetypes that we are currently looking into. But there's certainly a lot of potential and stuff we would like to do going forward in the future and expanding on social spaces as well.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing when we prototyped these, one aspect that we envisioned was for refueling. Like instead of needing a large station, you could have these asteroid bases like strategically placed around where you could, for example, refuel, rearm. So we definitely envision this as an expandable feature. But
yeah,
it's something we want to do.
In ISC just yesterday, which was about the more social aspects, not the combat stuff. But we mentioned that, the Pyro system is so much bigger than Stanton. That the distances between planets are such that having to strategically figure out where you can stop and refuel along the way just to get to the other.
Und da kommt das Tankschiff, die Starfarer. Ne? Die müssen sich also Gedanken machen und das machen sie auch bei großen Systemen. Bei großen Systemen muss es definitiv Punkte geben, an die wir nur gelangen können, wenn an einem gewissen Punkt, nach 2/3 der Strecke oder was auch immer, ich dort bei einem Tankschiff auftanke. Das wird kommen. Und genau die Voraussetzungen dafür müssen eben geschaffen werden. Und die schaffe ich dadurch, dass ich die Strecken so verlängere, dass die Leute tanken müssen und dass dort eben keine Base ist, wo ich automatisch auftanken kann, sondern dass dort genau der Punkt ist, wo sich Leute hinstellen können oder wo sie hinfliegen können mit ihrer Starfarer und dort eine Tankstelle anbieten. Ne? Und das ist der Weg und es gibt keine andere Möglichkeit und die werden sie damit also auch gehen.
Outer ends of the solar system is a important part, and that's what you just mentioned is a great kind of follow-up thing. I mean, obviously we've been adding to the Stanton system for years and years and years. We'll continue to add to the Pyro system after the release of 4.0, and that's an easy consideration. Well, maybe there's an asteroid base gas station there, and that'll help deal with a stress point along that travel route and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's more interesting as well because, we have these gigantic stations, but when you travel down the motorway in the middle of nowhere, you hit a little gas station, and I think there's some fun there. There's some different kind of style and aesthetic we could use, a different experience than having to go into a station and everything that comes with that. Yeah.
Okay. What else we got? Let's go back to contested zones for a little bit. We talked a little bit about this with sometimes you have the direct route out, but I'm willing to bet there's more here. How will we be able to extract something from the contested zones if people spawn right next to it and are back in 1 to 2 minutes after we kill them? It sounds super annoying to deal with.
So we obviously have considered that, and
have you?
I'd like to hope so. So the way that the contested zones is by design, the deeper you go, the better rewards there are to find. And if, for example, you encountered a PvP situation, or you yourself were killed by a PvE encounter, getting back to where you were is not so straightforward. It's not just a case of a 1-2 minute run in. If you were, deep within the contested zone, not to mention that, you'd have to rearm yourself. I mean, you could run in with your suit and a pistol, but will you be able to successfully get back to your body if you don't equip yourself well? And similarly, if in a PvP situation, if you kill someone, you succeed in PvP, you take their stuff, are they going to pop up a minute later? I doubt it. Within the contested zone, not only are there traps, hazards, lots of PvE enemies that will be respawning. So even if you cleared out and your path behind you, they're going to be respawning in, like you would see in a.
Sagt nichts anderes. Man sieht auch, wie komplex das doch ist, was sie sich vorher überlegen müssen, ne? Dass man sich bis zu, wenn man dann in Gebieten spielen möchte mit einem höheren Level, dass man sich dorthin durchkämpfen muss, ne? Man spawnt nicht einfach wieder hinter der nächsten Tür. Und damit kann man dann wie so ein Schwall von Gegnern sozusagen produzieren, oder der wird dann produziert, weil die immer wieder neu spawnen und dann rein und drauf und rein und drauf und so. Nein, sondern die müssen sich dorthin durchkämpfen, ne? Also da ist ein Engpass eingebaut, da ist ein Filter oder Sieb eingebaut, wie auch immer man es nennen will, und das ist auch okay so. Also die machen sich Gedanken. Super.
A typical dungeon. You also have exfiltration routes available to you, as Khan said earlier. So, you could decide that person might be coming back for you again. They might turn up, in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes. They might bring friends. Now's my time to get out. I'm going to head for that exfiltration route, leave, get back to the social space, and, take my loot home. This is something that we obviously want to see play out. We want to see how players, in testing, and if any changes are required.
Und das ist, weil er sagt jetzt, ne, sie wollen sehen, ob dieses Konzept aufgeht. Und das ist für die Testen. Und das ist für mich auch Testen. Für mich ist Testen für den Normalspieler, wenn man das Konzept des Spiels testet. Dafür muss es aber funktionieren. Und 3.24 funktioniert derzeit bei vielen nicht. Und bei mir auch nicht. Und das ist für mich dann kein Testen. Ja, ich habe gestern erst mal zugeguckt. Egal, immer wenn ich zugucke bei irgendwelchen anderen Streamern. Ja, dann geht das nicht, dann geht der Fahrstuhl nicht, dann geht das nicht, dann stürzt der Server ab, dann ist das. Das ist kein Testen. Das sind Grundfunktionen. Das hat für mich nichts mit Testen zu tun. Das testen nicht Spieler, sondern das muss der Entwickler testen, dass der Fahrstuhl funktioniert und diese Fehler ausmerzen. Das ist ein anderes Niveau von Testen. Niedriggradiger, möchte ich es mal nennen. Ne? Spieler sollten die Konzepte testen und irgendwelche ganz seltenen Fehler. Aber nicht, wenn ich ins Spiel rein will und das Ding fliegt mir schon um die Ohren. Das hat nichts mit Testen zu tun von Spielern. Das ist Testen auf einem viel niedrigeren Niveau, nämlich von den Entwicklern. Von mir aus noch Evocati. Aber selbst da würde ich es zurückziehen und würde sagen, nee, die sollten auch andere Dinge testen. Ne? Weil, was können die daran ändern? Nichts.
We'll look to do that, but I think the design currently will hopefully avoid that.
Ja, die können dann noch versuchen, Wege zu verlängern und sowas alles danach, das Level-Design zu ändern. Ne? Das ist Testen.
Asked if there was a Lightsmith asked will there be multiple ways in and out. Yes, we mentioned that earlier in the show, Lightsmith. You can watch the replay up on YouTube if you missed that earlier information. You keep mentioning traps, and this was even during the the filming for the last ISC. Every time you say traps, I keep imagining like a classic Dungeons and Dragons mimic, like a thing that looks like a treasure chest, looks like an item box, and then it explodes and sprays gas at you and kills you. I don't know if we've got time to squeeze it in, but would you guys, for me, consider some explosive item boxes that look like, oh look, there's loot in there?
I think I can speak for everyone when I say that we would love to develop a whole range of traps and hazards. We are implementing ones that we have currently, like trip mines, explosive canisters, hazard zones, radiation, fire. But
Strahlung, ne? Und da haben wir Strahlung. Und bei Strahlung kommt dann schon wieder, sind wir schon wieder bei der Rüstung, ne? Dass die Rüstung auch einen gewissen Grad von Strahlung abhalten muss, wenn man an bestimmten Loot kommen will. Ne? Feuer das Gleiche. Hat man einen Feuerlöscher mit, findet man in der Nähe einen Feuerlöscher, kann man das irgendwie ablöschen, ne? Dass man da rankommt.
a mimic chest would be amazing.
Yeah, it can't just be there's nothing you can do about it. Like we got to be able to scan it. There's got to be a way to detect it and stuff and avoid it. You can't just be random. Oh well, I did nothing and blew myself up. But for the
Kisten scannen, ne? Da sieht man, wie schnell man die Spieltiefe deutlich erhöhen kann und was die noch machen können, ne? Ein Scanner-Modul fürs Utility, so. Kiste scannen, auf Gefahren, auf Pfeilen, ob was drin ist, was auch immer, ne? Das wird kommen. Das wird kommen.
people who are in too big a hurry and don't do the due diligence, those people deserve to have a box blow up in their face, is what I'm saying.
I mean, hey, maybe it's like a weird alien creature, right? And it's taking on the form of a chest.
I was about to say,
that's
like,
one with stream.
yes, have a face hugger, right?
Yep.
Implement something new, and then you die in the next one trying to loot your body. Suddenly it bursts open.
Dave, what do you think the over under are that I can convince Damien DeVoe to create a mimic, like an actual creature? Maybe, okay. All right. I'm not gonna say it's gonna happen, but it's now my new mission in life, and I don't care about the show, so I'm just gonna go do that. Bye.
Thank you.
What group sizes are contested zones designed around?
Yeah. We definitely,
Ja, sagt er. Ja, was ist denn das für eine Antwort?
like, you can do it solo, but we wouldn't recommend that. Like John just said earlier, these are really PvP, PvE centric spaces. Even if where there were no players in your vicinity, you'll still face quite the challenge. So our recommendation is to at least go with one friend. We are currently envisioning or in our test at least, we are going in by 5 player groups with the recent test also involving another group. So, but yeah, we're seeing it to be able to scale up to 40 players per dungeon.
Now, you said this isn't the first time you said they can be soloed. Has anybody ever actually? Are you talking about like technically, like the way that the inside of a ship can technically catch fire if the temperature outside?
Ja, er hat jetzt auch gesagt, will er Dungeon das Wort genutzt, also da geht's auch wirklich hin. Und wer WoW kennt und er sagt bis 40 Personen, ne? Das heißt, wenn wir 2 Fraktionen haben, die sich gegenseitig bekämpfen oder 2 Gruppen, die da reingehen, ne? Da bin ich bei 20 bis 30 Personen, die da reingehen als Gruppe, reingehen können oder bis 40, ne? Das ist eine Ansage, ne? Das ist ein Raid, ne? Das ist ein großer Schlachtzugsraid in WoW von früher. Das ist ein Ding, ne? Und das muss man organisieren und das macht man nicht mehr einfach so, ne? Da braucht es Befehlsstrukturen in der Sprache, in der Absprache, Unterabteilungen, sprich heilen oder wie hier, wenn Kisten sind, die sich um den Loot kümmern, die dann scannen. Disziplin ist da das A und O. Übung, Spiel. Das ist dann ein Niveau in diesen höheren Levels, was wirklich Spielern, die auf einem höheren Niveau spielen wollen, Möglichkeiten gibt, dort Spielspaß zu haben. Frei, ne?
Outside is hot enough. You're saying it can technically be done, or has there actually been somebody through testing that has managed to just run through the whole thing by themselves?
Did anyone? I don't think I did. Did you, John?
It's difficult. Initially, in the earlier sections, I think it's doable. It's if you're good enough, it's manageable. But we do scale up like the enemies, the deeper you get, and the intention is that you might need to bring some help.
Sometimes if the AI is broken, you can do it.
Yeah, bad server maybe. Yeah.
A combination of letters and numbers followed by Ages Inquisitor in the chat says this cannot be live. It's way too professional. What effing show are you watching?
I mean, I appreciate the compliment. That's,
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
I feel like I'm a nervous mess right now. But okay.
Obviously, we knew that message was going to be sent, and we responded because this is recorded.
Ja, und da ist wohl der Punkt, wo ich mir sage, das muss nicht sein, ne? Die können die Fragen doch mal vorher rausheben. Können trotzdem ihre Späßchen machen, ne? Die sind super nervös hier und man sieht das ja oftmals und ich bin niemand, der sich daran erfreut, wenn man das hier noch verstärkt, ne? Die machen ihren Job, ne? Und die haben Spaß dran und genau das sollte auch erhalten bleiben.
Is that John? Is that your mom? Sage's Inquisitor, your mom? Will asteroid bases appear as quantum markers always, or is exploration stuff necessary to travel to them?
No, it's they will be always there, always present for you. As said, you can also go to them if there's no mission running, even the mission sandboxy ones, the encounter asteroid bases. You can travel there without requiring a mission. There will be AI population regardless. It's the mission stuff will add on top of that. But all of them you can see from the get-go. There might be plans for the future.
That's what I wanted to get at. That's certain. You're speaking about how it is in 4.0 in our initial release. Anybody that can remember the initial release of the PU, the stand system, back in late November, early December 2015, and you look at that version of the stand system versus the version of the stand system you have now, obviously these things change, these things grow over time. Pyro will be no different. Even as we continue to add star system after star system after star system after that, our intention is never to abandon the previous ones. There are new stuff coming to Stanton in 4.0. We haven't gotten to talking about.
Einwandfrei. Richtig super. Sie wollen die älteren Systeme nicht aufgeben. Das heißt, es wird in Stanton, es wird immer eine Entwicklung geben. Ne? Und die werden ältere Systeme nicht abhaken, sondern sie wollen dort auch weiter dran arbeiten. Und das ist schon mal super, ne?
About that yet, but it'll be on ISC in a couple of weeks. But 4.0 isn't just all Pyro and we forget Stanton. So we're talking about Pyro as it is in 4.0, but obviously as we continue to introduce more exploration-based ships, everybody knows the Zeus is on the public roadmap coming up here in a future release. One of the variants for that.
Der jetzt Zeus gesagt, ja, ne? Also Zeus wird als Zeus ausgesprochen. Das mit Zeus doch lieber, ne?
That is an exploration-based stuff. People here are very keen to start developing exploration-based stuff, like discovering transient jump points, finding an asteroid base, or maybe even a derelict space station that nobody's found before and stuff like this. Those stuff will become more prevalent as the footprint gets larger. As the footprint of the game gets larger and larger, and we're all very excited to do that. So not in 4.0, but
no, not yet. But we have lots of ideas internally, and we really would love to expand and iterate on it.
Und das ist das, was wichtig ist, was jetzt hier steht. Wir würden es wirklich gerne erweitern. Also, und das muss erhalten werden, ne? Die Chance muss diesen Entwicklern auch gegeben werden. Man sieht, der freut sich, ne? Und das ist es genau. Die Leute müssen bei CIG die Chance haben, sich in das Spiel einzubringen, ihre Ideen umsetzen zu dürfen. Und dann wird es großartig. Dann wird es ein richtig geiles Spiel, ne?
And more things.
Right. Another asteroid base question. So we mentioned that some of the asteroid bases had copians inside. Are these placeholders later to be replaced by more fitting creatures? Oh, this person's calling you out.
Das ist natürlich Quatsch, ne? So eine Frage, weil logisch sind die Copians nur Platzhalter. Ja, da wird es anders sehen, ne? Das ist ja nur erstmal ein Test, dass die überhaupt sich mit dieser Art und Weise jetzt auseinandersetzen und das einbringen als ersten Punkt und auch das weiterentwickeln, und dann wird das wirklich exponentiell irgendwann in einer Art und Weise, in der Anzahl der Arten und in der Menge und Masse explodieren, ne? Und auch dort haben wir natürlich gesehen, seit 2013 mit jedem neuen Jahr, mit jeder neuen Stufe und verbesserter Rechnerkraft ist mehr möglich. Ja? Und das ist diese Weiterentwicklung. Ne? Dass wir nicht in WoW wie in WoW ein Spiel haben, was vor 10 Jahren so aussieht, vor Stormwind oder Orgrimmar, wie es und heute noch genauso aussieht, sondern dass die daran weiterarbeiten. Und ja, das können nur die Programmierer oder CIG selber beantworten, ob das möglich ist. Ne? Das kann ich nicht.
Oh,
Apparently, they
actually,
don't
I
agree
think
Copians should be in asteroid bases. Thoughts?
I think they can make narrative sense in there, right? You can have domesticized Copians, right? They bring with them. As far as I know, right? We have like
Yeah,
variants
we
how it
actually have a
works.
domesticated variant. Yeah, pet
Yes.
copian basically.
They just look feral right now, so that will be like more fitting looking.
Haustiervariante, hat er gesagt, ne? Haustiervariante. Ja, und da kann sich doch jeder denken, was kommt. Das kann sich doch jeder denken. Und auch das ist wohl eine Erweiterung, wo sich alle drauf freuen werden.
But I don't think it's a far stretch that they can like narratively be around there. But yeah, I mean, if we have like more fitting creatures as well in the future, that's it. But for now, it's like what we have, what we are working with, right? Is human NPCs and then the Copians. So we try to utilize what we have to create more variety and like more interesting combat with the ingredients that we have.
Yeah.
Manuel voiced interest to have a space cow in an asteroid base.
Oh yes.
Yes.
We don't really talk about it for the rest of the season, but the domesticated Copians are one of the new aspects that are coming online with 4.0. These are domesticated for NPCs and stuff. We're not stealthily adding pet gameplay to players just yet.
They're attack dogs essentially. We have them in contested zones, and the narrative idea is that they have been breeding them and training them, and they will attack you. So as you engage a group of outlaws, there could be a couple of attack copians that they have that are charging at you, which I think provides a really interesting kind of gameplay dynamic. You're not just dealing with human menus now; you also have these fast-moving, low creatures that are attacking your ankles, and it adds a whole new aspect to combat.
And the process of developing Copians that react to NPCs. There are entities that they don't attack that are friendly to them, that can issue commands and stuff. This is all a step closer to what I could already see some of you are already thinking, pet and player ownership of stuff. That's not to say that you'll be able to own a Copian specifically. It's not to say that you don't. It's to say I don't know the answer, but I know that there has not been a week in the last 3 months where I haven't heard either CR or Rich mention something about we got to get pets in there and stuff. So this is the next step towards that.
But yeah, I mean, to go back to what Manuel said, I think as he said, I think we can narratively explain why there are Copians on the abandoned asteroid bases. I think it would be a shame to remove them just to lessen the encounter variety. And I definitely agree that it would be cool to get those creatures like the mimic facehugger chest we talked about. These kind of alien creatures that you would expect to see on asteroid bases in the future would be amazing. But for now, I think they do offer something useful.
I said nothing about facehugger. That was all you.
Nope, that's you.
I just wanted a little chest that killed people. I didn't say anything about.
It has to hug your face.
That was you.
That's what they do, right?
The views and opinions of Joe do not represent those. All right, next question. Will some contested zones vary in terms of difficulty and overall loot? For instance, one station having relatively fewer enemies and loot compared to another with an abundance of heavily armored enemies and very valuable loot.
Yes, we are alternating some of this based on the contested zone you're in. We also have a very specific one, which we call the Ghost Arena, but don't really want to spoil that yet. But at the same time, so for us, what is really important.
Also das höchste Niveau wird also Ghost Arena sein. Und was man auch sieht, ist, dass sie sich darüber Gedanken machen, eben auch wie in WoW. Ich nehme immer den Vergleich, weil da gibt es die meisten Spieler, würde ich mal sagen. auch das Niveau von Rüstung wird noch kommen. Das Level von Rüstung wird noch kommen, wie wir es dort haben, bis zu von Normal, Grau, Normal, Selten, Rar, Legendary. Das wird kommen. Ne? Es wird also Verbesserungen geben an diesen Rüstungen und die Legendary-Ausgabe einer Rüstung werden eben nur Spieler haben, die sich dort durchkämpfen und die genau dort versuchen, sich die zu holen. Und wichtig ist nur eins, dass man sich diese Rüstung später in-game nicht erkaufen kann. Das ist wichtig. Ne? Dass also auch, wie soll ich das sagen, der Grund des Spiels für diese Elite-Spieler in ihrem Part, in ihrem PvP-Part immer da ist, dass die auch stolz drauf sein können, genau diese Rüstung auf diesem Niveau sich erspielt zu haben. Ne? Nicht mal gefunden zu haben, sondern erkämpft zu haben. Und das muss auch bitte bleiben, weil das ist ein wichtiger Part, der auch allzu leicht den anderen Spielen irgendwann im Sinne des, oh, wir müssen jetzt hier mal noch Kohle machen, lass uns doch hier mal was verkaufen, ne? Oder die Möglichkeit schaffen, das zu verkaufen. Nee, bitte nicht.
When it comes to the reward stuff, is that things are actually substantial and unique. What we put in there has to not be widely available, right? So, and that's the thing that we want to really balance out with the rest of the universe to make it worthwhile and to balance it also out between the contested zones themselves.
Yeah, I think anybody who's played Star Citizen for a while knows that one of the, I'm just going to call it weird. It was one of the weird limitations of the mission system and the game itself was the inability to distribute rewards, in-game rewards to players. It's one of those things that somehow with the development of everything else and whatnot, it was just always a we'll get to it, and we just never seem to get to it. In 4.0 and beyond, a big chunk of the mission feature team, the stuff like this, has now been going to adding that functionality in there, so that now you saw it with the with the Operation Overdrive and stuff. Now there are things you can do in game and now get rewarded for an item in game. So that kind of technology expands and continues into asteroid bases, into contested zones, and into things like Ghost Arena that we're not going to talk about, stuff like that. So you're going to see more and more unique things that are rewarded to you through playing the game as development continues to 4.0 and beyond and stuff like that. And that's really exciting, because I think if I can speak, normally I'm speaking for the devs, but if I can speak for the fans for a while, I think this sense of progression, this sense of I'm doing things and I'm earning things that I can't get anywhere else, it's like this, has been missing from the game for a little while. So it's one of the more exciting aspects to me of 4.0 is this work that we're talking about today, the contested zones and the asteroid bases, because to me, this seems like the birth of the very beginnings, the birth of actual player progression to something greater. And I'm really excited about that. So I hope that's coming across in the ISC in this. And if it's not, I'm sorry, I tried. Next question. What's the ghost thing? Stop being a weenie. Just tell us.
The ghost thing?
The ghost.
The supernatural elements.
What's it called?
Ghost Arena.
Ghost Arena.
Oh, that one. I guess. How should I describe it? Do you know Running Man? I guess you do,
Okay,
right?
that's all we'll say. That's enough.
Okay.
That's enough. Cool. I love Running Man. Do contested zones have one main objective, or are there different areas with things to gain from each of them?
Yes. So this ties into what Khan was just saying in terms of progression and rewards. On the kind of smaller scale of a singular contested zone, we do also have a bit of variety in what you can do and your goals. We kind of have broken it into 3 areas. So you have like a short-term goal where you just want to go into a contested zone, you just want to get some loot, kill some enemies, and get out. And that's kind of one quick playstyle we're looking at. A second one is that maybe you want to complete the entire contested zone, so get to the final reward room, complete the entire thing, and that takes a little bit more effort and maybe coordination and maybe some help. For example, like we have these security doors that require keys, specific keys that you'll have to find from within the dungeon to be able to progress into the deeper parts. So that's kind of a second playstyle that we're envisioning. And the third one is, as Khan said, this overall progression where you now have to engage with multiple contested zones, with asteroid bases, and kind of go along this whole flow. And all the rewards are scaled to kind of the effort involved in each of those.
Mopspear in the chat says, I want to know because I want to marry that sandworm. You know, Mopspear, if you believe in yourself and you work hard, all things are possible.
Das ist ja auch so ein Ami-Spruch.
Except that. Will asteroid bases have any enclosed docks that would handle a capital class ship? For example, a capital class hangar with atmosphere, but with an enclosed zero gravity space. But this is a really specific question. Will you make this very specific thing for this very specific person?
So I probably have to disappoint you in this regard. So the initial set of asteroid bases we are putting out, right? We don't do social spaces, so there's no official landing, so no hangars or landing pads services whatsoever, right? So that will come down later down the line.
Also da sagt er, was ich vorhin gesagt habe, ne? Es wird eben diese Hangars nicht geben. Auf jeden Fall jetzt zum Anfang. Und da stellt sich die Frage, was passiert mit meinem Schiff, ne?
Even then, if we add the more smaller social spaces like gas stations and so on, it's probably more to serve smaller, medium-sized ships, probably not the big capital-sized ships. We might have docking tubes at some of them later on, so that could be your only access point if that's supported for your ship, but probably not. I mean, if you buy in the ship, right, it's like then you have certain stations available to you. That's the fantasy, right? So,
Yeah. During the ISC, let's back up. Over the course of the development of this game, we've seen a lot of procedural tools done. The Rastar and stuff that can generate certain layouts for different space stations and everything. In the ISC, we specifically mentioned that the asteroid bases were not procedural. Can you talk to us about why that change was made? Why are the asteroid bases created bespoke? You know, there's that word. There's actually an appropriate reason to use that word there, people. So, you know, you can drink if you want to, but why did we do these by hand instead of using the procedural tools?
I think there's always a balance to be had with how much you do stuff procedural versus how much you want to control the general flow of things. So we're talking like procedural, like in our terms, is used to be a lot like you stitch a room one by one together based on kind of some parameters and logic. But that kind of eliminates our ability to handcraft an experience that flows throughout a multi-room setup, right? So what we're looking at right now instead is hand stitching certain sections together that can combine into kind of like a gameplay bubble, and then utilizing multiple gameplay bubbles that we can then stitch together with this procedural tool, right? So we have a bit more control on the scale of things that is a bit larger than just a room, but accommodates for multiple rooms basically.
And that's in line with things we've said before. I mean, there are other games out there who very famously everything is procedural, and some of the struggle of that is that nothing is really unique because of that. And no, I'm not talking about the one you're obviously thinking. I'm talking about another one that's older, back from like 2017, 2018. We've always said that we use procedural generation as a tool, not an ends. We use it to help us move forward. we use it to help us flesh out, but as not just the sole creation of a thing. Because we have, and I think if we've demonstrated anything,
Das ist auch schön, ne? Die wollen nicht einfach nur ein Tool schaffen und dann auf den Knopf drücken und 1000 Systeme erstellen, Copy and Paste mit kleinen Variationen, sondern die wollen dran arbeiten, ne? Dass es wirklich einzigartig wird. Sehr schön.
in the 11 years that ISC, ATV, and everything's been around and stuff like this, is that we have an incredible team of artists. Not just the 3D artists, the 2D artists, the tech artists, the animators. There's all kinds of stuff that gets us the look and feel that we have, and we're never going to. I can't see us ever just fully handing that over to procedural generation, generative AI, anything else. We might use these things as tools, again, to help flesh out the other areas once we've designed the critical path and the second critical path and the third critical path, and just using it to flesh out some stuff, as you said. But that's been a hallmark. That's been what we've been saying about procedural tools from the very beginning. So it's nice to see that it's, or here anyway, that it's still the case. Will we be able to manipulate the environment of contested zones, like turn on and off gravity, life support, turrets, doors, stuff like that?
Not right now from the get-go, right? It's something that can become more interesting once resource network hits. So yeah, not initially. Though that said, we have doors with keycards. So there's
And fuses.
And fuses. So there's some elements where you can already manipulate, but I guess what players might have.
Was meint der mit Infuses? Das verstehe ich jetzt nicht. Also Sie haben ja vorhin schon gesagt, Türen mit Keycards, also mit Schlüsseln, die man finden muss. Okay, um weiterzukommen. Aber Infuses, was soll das sein?
Have more in mind with these systems that you can manipulate, like power resources and all these things. We'd really love to implement them once we have the systems available to us.
Now, you said something there, and I want to make sure that we get some clarity on that. At this moment, the moment that we're recording, what day is this? Friday. What's the date? As of Friday, August 16th, Resource Network is scheduled for release in 4.0. These things are scheduled for release in 4.0. When Manuel says when that stuff is in, when that stuff's ready, he means when it's up and running and functional for him to utilize it in the design of this experience. Because these experiences are being developed concurrently, and so like this, we can't have them sitting around waiting. Can't have asteroid bases sitting around waiting for work on Resource Network to come along. So the first version will use little pieces of it, like you said, the key cards and the fuses and stuff like that. But as things progress, 4 point whatever after that, and so like this, then as the feature hardens and gets more developed and stuff, we'll be able to utilize more and more aspects of that. You've already seen, if you watched ISC yesterday, some of the locations teams are already using aspects of the resource networking system for their charge and drain stuff, and for the different homesteads and habitats and stuff like that. So it's just a question of, do we want to wait, or do we want to put out a first version that can do all of these other things and then add that later? And that's what he's talking about here.
So. Exactly. I think it would be, or like we all think it would be a shame holding on with the asteroid bases and contested zones. This is already a playable content that works without the resource network already, right? So it's like, why wait? Get it out in the hands of players, have them play. Also getting feedback, right?
Und das ist auch mal wichtig, was er sagt, ne? Sie wollen die Spieler dazu bringen, dass sie spielen können, ne? Und das ist eben, was mir jetzt fehlt im BTU, ne? Da kann ich spielen. Stürz ab, ich kann nicht spielen. Ich kämpfe eigentlich mit Abstürzen. Ich will aber spielen, ne? Ich will Spaß dran haben und will durch das Spielen, durch das Bereitstellen von Hintergrundinformationen, dass die zuschauen können in irgendeiner Art und Weise, analysieren können in irgendeiner Art und Weise, dass die aufgrund meines individuellen Spiels als Gamer feststellen können, stimmt das Ergebnis mit dem, was wir eigentlich wollten, beim Bereitstellen der Inhalte überein, ne? Also wie hier spielen die so, wie wir es erwartet haben, oder nutzen die irgendwelche Lücken, die wir noch schließen müssen? Müssen wir in diesen instanzierten Sachen, die sie ja letztendlich über diese Schlüssel und Türen instanziert haben, Schwierigkeitsgrade, müssen wir noch was verändern? Können wir was verändern? Können wir was verbessern? Das ist Testen und nicht hier, was immer gesagt wird, oftmals auch. Ja, die Gamer müssten jetzt testen, damit die 30Ks weggehen. Völliger Schwachsinn. Absoluter Bullshit.
And see like how players engage with the environment and how we can improve upon that. And then we already have also ideas like how we can implement or like add in the future once the systems are more refined.
Eagle
think
6. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to add on a little bit as well. I think it's worth adding that we have definitely viewed the contested zone asteroid bases a little differently to past things we've put out. We want these locations to.
Ja, dass die Basen jetzt anders sehen als früher, ne? Die haben daraus gelernt, ne? Und genau das ist es. Die schauen zu, was wird wie genutzt, welche Quests werden wie gemacht oder was tun die Spieler und lernen daraus und entwickeln sich weiter. Und das ist die Basis. Nie aufhören, sich zu entwickeln. Ne? Fehler machen, gerne. Fehler gehören immer dazu. Es ist eine Frage der Definition, was ist ein Fehler? Und ein Fehler sollte immer was sein. Der Mensch ist dazu geschaffen, Fehler zu machen, und der hilfreichere Mensch lernt aus seinen Fehlern. Ne?
Kind of stand alone, like as themselves, be a bit more sandboxy and have more interactable elements in them. And the resource network that will eventually come is a part of that. But things like the key cards and the security doors and traps and we're trying to push more of that into the environment to make them kind of be more standalone and exist as a space that you can interact with and have gameplay in.
I was going to say, Eagle 6 Airsoft says it's not ISC live without 20 disclaimers. Well, it's not ISC live at all. But there's lots of disclaimers because I've been doing this for 10 years, and there's nothing, they're honest to God, the absolute worst thing in my entire life. Yeah, I'm not going to qualify that. It is the worst thing in my life, is watching somebody take something from one of my programs and misunderstand it. Not maliciously, not the people who twist things because they're looking for clicks or whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the good, the good people who simply heard something and took it a certain way, and that's not the way it's going to be. And then I watch that person get excited. I watch that person get excited, and I watch that person get hyped, and I watch that person get so hopeful for a thing that's not actually going to happen the way that they think we said it, because we didn't take 10, 15, 20 seconds to clarify it, to disclaimer it. So yeah, there are about 20 or so disclaimers and clarifications on SCL every week, and that's
Da definiert letztendlich jetzt auch die Erwartung an sich selber, ne?
Part of my responsibility, not just to you, but to the developers, to make sure that the things that they say are properly understood and in the proper context. And if I didn't, there'd probably be 3 more people in the chat jumping on me for not clarifying. So I'll take the hit. I'll take the little hit for, there's too many disclaimers and whatnot, because ultimately the alternative's far worse. All right. We've been sort of dancing around this, and I don't know how much you're going to be able to get into it, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you. What kind of rewards are there from the contested zones? Is there a shared PvP mission item to recover, or are there loot small enough to carry in a backpack, example? Obviously, we don't want to spoil everything. We still want some level of discovery, but as much as you can share, what are people working towards in a contested zone?
I guess I can give some examples. So
Jetzt kommen wir zum Loot, ne?
the first part, what kind of rewards you're gonna get is course, our first step is to make things unavailable, like widely unavailable, something that you just can't not get from the shops in Stanton or in Pyro. It has
Und das ist das, was ich vorhin gesagt habe. Dieser Loot, der dort erreichbar sein wird, darf nicht auf anderem Weg kaufbar sein. Ne?
to be something that is only be retrievable right here. And what we're looking at right now, after talking with system design about it and other people, is that ship components are one of the big steps like that. Like military, stealth class, or even competition class ship components will be made exclusive in some capacity, certain parts of it, and only be widely available or
certain variants of
available.
them.
Yeah, exclusively available in reward rooms or in the final. Let's call it the grand prize.
Yeah. I'm going to stop you there. That's plenty.
Okay.
We don't want to share everything, but yes, I'm taking next week off, and then I'm in Germany the following week to film with Torsten and the gang there about resource networking. And one of the neat talking points, and I think I feel like I actually said this last week, but I'll say it this week too. You might remember an old series of articles that John Crew and I wrote back when I was a community manager, 2016, 2017. I've been a community manager in 5 or 6 years. But back then we wrote a series of articles for the website called The Shipyard, where we broke down basically the overall plan for how ships are supposed to work. And one of the things we talked about there was the classifications of materials, not just in quality, but in type, military, competition, luxury, stuff like that. So this, along with Resource Network, and I'm not going to go into it too much here because we've got the episode coming, is the beginning of that realization of multiple ship components that are actually tuned to different abilities and tuned to different performance thresholds and stuff. So after 4.0 is where the world of, okay, my M50 behaves like this, but I'm going to rip this out, and I'm going to rip this out, and I'm going to go do a contested zone, I'm going to get this, I'm going to pop that in, I'm going to go to an asteroid base and get this, I'm going to pop that in, and now my M50 behaves differently than the stock thing that comes off the market. 4.0 is where the start of that begins to happen, and
Und da sind wir auch wieder an dem Punkt zurück. Ne? Man hat immer so seine Loops, sag ich mal. LTI, ne? LTI ist für das Basisschiff und wird es immer sein. Aber wir sehen hier, es wird immer mehr Dinge geben, die man sich in-game erspielen muss und die man dann separat auch versichern muss. Ne? Also LTI ist relativ.
As, like I said, as the co-author of the Shipyard articles with John Crew so many years ago, it's one of those things that I've been waiting, which is why you brought it up, so I'm gonna excited about it. All right.
I hope I didn't spoil too much.
Nope, that was just enough. That was just enough. You did good, Con. Tell us everything else. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but yeah, to the second part of the question about how we extracted freight elevators. It's not just going to be backpacks or something that you can carry, right?
Ja, das ist wichtig, ne? Weil die Frage habe ich mir auch gerade gestellt, wenn ich da für mein Schiff Systemkomponenten finde, ja, kann ich ja nicht in den Rucksack stecken, ne?
Right, there's going to be freight elevators inside the zone that are positioned in a way where you can extract certain things in a more efficient manner.
Corn 44's TV says, say it again, I wasn't listening.
Sorry?
Nothing, I'm just...
Oh, okay.
Sometimes I appreciate a solid low-level troll. Are asteroid bases, as gameplay locations, a precursor and test for player-owned asteroid bases, or are there no connections to be drawn? Careful.
Not yet, at least.
Manuel?
No, not yet, at least at the moment. So they're currently designed as purely focused for gameplay and content, first and foremost.
Yes, that is all they're intended for at this time. Watch Citizen.
Sollen sie nicht zu viel.
That's actually not about asteroid bases, but I just meant I shouldn't have even tied those two together. That's not fair to tie those two together, but you should watch CitizenCon. How do you envision contested zones evolving over time to prevent them from becoming static content?
Ja,
But yeah,
das wird
yeah,
schwierig.
totally. I mean, this is a live game, so we will continuously update these places with anything, any new items that might be popping up, any new systems. I mean, we have to maintain. We are constantly, as level designers, going back to old locations and giving them an upgrade when some change to a system comes up, right? So
Also letztendlich, was soll er da jetzt sagen, ne? Die Level werden sich nicht ändern, aber er sagt jetzt, aktueller Loot wird eben dort auch mit einfließen. Aber wenn die das jetzt designen, das ist ja nicht wie so eine Amöbe, ne? Das heute so aussieht und morgen so.
the same would apply here for the contested zones as well.
Right. As something like pet copions does become available to players and stuff like that, they'll have to revisit the balance of that as the light amplification scopes that are scheduled to arrive in 4.0 and stuff. I'm sure that had to change a couple things with, we thought that was a dark corner. Not anymore. Stuff like that. So yeah, so it's you make a really great point, Con. I'm grateful that you brought it up. It's every time a new gameplay system comes online and stuff like that, there's always something that has to get revisited and has to be reiterated upon in order to incorporate that stuff in. And these will be no different.
Yeah.
Will contested zones have any time pressures that player must manage, or can players just take their time?
There's going to be time pressures. Specific locations even have timed gates. So during these timers, we
Zeitgesteuerte Tore, ne? Also wird es auch in irgendeiner Art und Weise Zeitdruck geben. Letztendlich sind wir dort wieder bei WoW Mythic, ne? Will ich den Loot bekommen, muss ich es in der und der Zeit schaffen, die Instanz.
track players to be there. Other times, certain things will be locked, so there's no point in going there. So yeah, there's going to be time gates. The other added pressure is just the population that exists there, right? Like you won't be able to fully eliminate the static AI population or the traps that just exist in this space. So there's a physical pressure, and then there's also the other side with timed gates.
Yeah, that kind of ties back to early discussions about PvP and camping as well. That we want the PvE environment to be constantly pushing against the players as well. So yes, you could find a loot box, loot it, and then try and stay there to see if you can loot it again later. But we would then want the environment to be pushing back on you for respawning enemies, patrolling enemies. To
Da sieht man, wie weit das geht, wie weit die sich schon Gedanken machen. Und das ist natürlich super, ne?
really not allow that.
I was looking at this. You said timed, and I just had terrible flashbacks. I was at Blizzard when we did the Gates of Encourage, and this time, the first timed event, and told everybody in Azeroth to go to one place at the exact same time, and what that did to performance and stuff like this. This isn't going to be the same thing, right? A timed event, and suddenly we're going to make everybody go to one of 5 places, or
it will be a bit more loose than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I still have trauma. It's 20 years ago. Oh my gosh, it's 20 years ago. Well, it's 19 since Encourage, but Tech Zulu says Jared's in a studio and the others are on webcams. I'm not in a studio. I'm in outer space. See? I'm in outer space. No, the other guys are in Germany, and it's not very cost-effective to fly 3 people over here just to do an hour-long show. We do try not to spend money where we don't have to.
I want that too. Why don't we have cool props?
I could tell you, but the answer would not make you happy.
True. Actually, you were in Manchester recently, Manuel. You should have, grabbed a couple, right?
I mean, I'm not sure if Jared counted all his helmets, right?
For both asteroid bases and contested zones, we're almost out of time. How varied will they be from base to base? 6.
Sorry.
I said for asteroid bases and contested zones, how varied are they? We know there's about 5 of this and whatever this. Are they substantially different? Are they variations on a theme? What are we talking about as far as variation?
For asteroid bases, we're talking right now, we're working on 3 variants. So, like Manuel mentioned earlier, we got the encounter variant, we got a more explorative variant, which has a lot more like of an abandoned theme to it. And then we got kind of the contested zone. It's not specifically contested zone, but it is a location that ties to the overall progression that we are planning for.
Okay. And last question. We mentioned this is okay, lots of MMOs going back to the end of the beginning of time here. And make no mistake, Star Citizen is an MMO. You know, our single player experience is Squadron 42 or the persistent universes are.
Und auch das ist wichtig, wieder, dass sie sich immer dran erinnern, ne? Star Citizen ist ein MMO. Das dürfen wir nicht vergessen, ne?
Our multiplayer experience. That's not to say that there isn't a way to make your living as a solo player, but I mean, the overwhelming majority of the game is designed for a multiplayer experience. That's why we have a single player and a multiplayer. Where was I going with this? Oh, for a lot of MMOs, dungeons are normal occurrence. Everything has some area that counts as their dungeon. Some they go in here. There's an entrance. There's a progression through. There's mobs to fight. There's an occasional boss. We talked a little bit about your desire for boss fights, John, when we filmed ISC. This last question says, what lessons, if any, from other games have informed your approach to creating what is our first version of that kind of experience with asteroid bases and contested zones? What have you learned from other games?
So when we first started looking into this and we were in kind of pre-production, we obviously looked at all current MMO, dungeons. I think between the level designers, we've kind of played a lot of them. So, WoW, Final Fantasy 14, all the obvious ones. And we obviously looked into the dungeons and how we could apply what they have to what we tried. And we did originally kind of internally call them open dungeons. And the idea was to have a kind of traditional experience of, there's a start and an end. It gets harder the deeper you get. There are packs of enemies. But because we are Star Citizen and we are a unique MMO in that, these are open, we kind of looked more to the old school MMOs for a bit more of where to pull from, like EverQuest, and which had those open space dungeons where lots of players could go in. So we kind of pulled on that thread a little bit. And then we also looked at, in terms of like map layout designs, we were pulling from like Guild Wars 2 and things where we looked at how they laid out their dungeons, the branches and the way to move players around the space. So we did pull from existing and old MMOs.
Lessons.
But at the same time,
you're not talking about floor plans. You're talking lessons.
No, sorry. Yeah, I should clarify. Lessons. Yes.
You're going to get a lawyer busting through my door here in 5 minutes.
No. We certainly have our unique layouts. Yes, the lessons we pulled from these and our experiences playing them as to what we could apply to what we were doing. And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that said, if you want to build Karazhan in Star Citizen, I'm all for it. Let's fight Little Red Riding Hood. Let's do it.
I mean, we already have Ghosts, so yeah, why not have Karazhan as well?
All right.
Karazhan.
Anybody else want to add to that? Con, Manuel?
I mean, pretty much what John said, right? It's like we need to. We are building something that we think is fun in the first iteration, and like also like as we are like being vivid MMO players as well, and we build something that we think fits the game a lot. But obviously, we need to find out like, we want to know about the play experience and see their reactions and what they like and what they don't like about it, so we can refine.
Da ist es wieder dieses Testen, ne? Die wollen sehen, wie unsere Reaktionen sind, ne? Und ob es uns auch gefällt, ob also das, was sie sich vorgestellt haben, unter Spielspaß eintritt.
The existing ones, and we can make the new ones we're working on like even better and so on. So
That's
like I think we have all the great games, right? It's like they're building something and then see what the players like in particular for like their game bubble, and then trying to make that better.
No, that's a great point. We're in a position that other games don't get. We don't have to, and this will upset certain people and a certain selection of people, and that's okay. It's the truth, and if it upsets, it upsets. We don't have to figure every single thing out ahead of time. Because we run a live environment in the middle of our development, we can afford to test. We can afford to put a thing out there and try it. And instead of assuming that people will react this and assuming people will react like that and assuming people will like this and assuming people will hate that, instead of assuming, we can actually put these things out there and test them and get actual.
Und das ist Testen und nicht 30 Ks am laufenden Band. Das ist Testen. Das ist das Fazit. Und schön, dass das nochmal so klar gesagt wird.
Feedback and go, okay. So that wasn't as bad as we thought it was. So there's something there. This didn't work the way that we thought it was. So we can move away from that. And that's been a hallmark of Star Citizen's development since the PU began in 2015. So we have this double-edged sword that definitely cuts both ways, where we can use the virtue of our live environment in the middle of our development to test certain things that other games might not even ever attempt. But at the same time, it means that there are a lot of decisions that sometimes come out, and there are plenty of players who are scratching their heads and they're like, that was never gonna work and whatnot. It's like, and that's certainly an opinion, and it might even have been the right one, but we don't have to guess. We can afford to test and try out, and that's a benefit, ultimately a benefit to our project. And I really liked your answer there, Manuel. So that was just me saying I really like your answer. Folks, that's it. Thanks for watching another episode of Star Citizen Live. What's it called? Contested Zones and Asteroid Bases. I remembered it. If you haven't already, check out yesterday's Inside Star Citizen about the Pyro system and non-combat shooty gameplay stuff. Everybody's got this idea that Pyro is just carnage and chaos, but it's not just. There's more stuff too. So check out ISE from yesterday. Next week, SEO will be off. I'm gone for the entire week because it's my birthday. I'm old. ISE is we're going to be airing. I'll just be honest with you. We're going to be airing a segment that we shot more than a year and a half ago. We shot it for a last Ship Showdown and didn't use it. So we're using it this week while I'm gone. It's a retrospective look back at the amazing contributions of superstar concept artist Gavin Rothery. If you've never seen him or heard of him or whatever, we think you're going to love him. He's one of my dear favorite people that work on the project, responsible for more spacecraft and vehicles than any single human being in Star Citizen. So he's got quite a legacy there. So you can check that out if you want. And then we're back in 2 weeks, or ISC. We're going back to Pyro. We're going back to all the combat and carnage and chaos with a few new elements that you may not be suspecting. So check that out. We're going to check out Xenothreat's home turf, and that's pretty cool. Let's just say they do not clean up after themselves, which will be a surprise to no one. So for Star Citizen Live, I'm Jared. That was Con. That was Manuel. That was John. That's David and Pete on the buttons over there. Thanks for watching. Take care. Keep an eye out on PTU for updates on 324. Voting for Ship Showdown should be underway. Be sure you vote on which ship gets whatever the prizes and stuff are this year. I should have looked it up before the show. Remember that guy earlier in the show that said this can't be live? It was too professional. Wow. Not my show. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Try not to burn everything down while I'm gone for a week. Bye.
Sehr schön. Also das war wirklich gut, muss ich wirklich sagen. Einwandfrei. Und in diesem Sinne wünsche ich euch einen schönen Sonntag.